Good evening, Shavua Tov, to my fellow lovers of Yeshivat HaRetzion and Gush alumni, rabbis, and friends. A special thank you to Rabbi Yonatan Shai Friedman for inviting me to share a few words on really what is, for me right now, an incredibly momentous moment. First of all, I'm sitting outside, just outside the Old City walls. You could see right over here the actual walls of the Old City. You can get a glimpse of them. It is Motzei Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh Elul, just as we started Parashat Shoftim. I just spent Shabbos in Yerushalayim, and I have the opportunity to share a Dvar Torah. I have a very brief idea, really just a very simple Rashi with a comment and a thought that I think is both simple and profound at the same time. Torah tells us throughout Sefer Devarim, Moshe's thoughts as the Jewish people get ready to enter Eretz Yisrael. And in many ways, Sefer Devarim is a summary of all of the things that Moshe believes the Jewish people need to prepare for, need to think carefully about as they are getting ready to enter Eretz Yisrael. And that explains so much in the context of the entire Sefer. And as part of that, Jewish people have to, as we know all too well, have an army. And they have to figure out who should fight and who should not fight, and who should go to war, who should not go to war. And we've seen this as part of the first psychological makeup, the first psychological test, emotional readiness to see whether or not soldiers are able to fight or not. And more important for our purposes, the Torah gives us a list of those people who should not go to battle. What does the Torah tell us? The Torah says, Mi ha'ish asher bana bayit chadash v'lo chanacho yelech v'yeshiv lebeito penyama b'milchama v'ish acher yechnechenu. First of all, a person who built a house and wasn't able to inaugurate it. Number two, Mi ha'ish asher nata kerem v'lo chilulo. A person who grows a vineyard. And number three, Mi ha'ish asher eris ish v'lo lakacho. And number four, a person who gets engaged to a woman, is about to be married and is unfortunately not able to finish the process. And finally, Torah tells us, Mi ha'ish ha'yare v'rach ha'levav yelech v'yashov lebeito pen yimas et levav echav kilvavo. Person who's afraid. Torah tells us that who is an individual who's fearful, faint-hearted, is concerned. He's a person who should not go and fight with his brothers in battle. And there's a very powerful comment of Rashi. Rashi really is just quoting the Gemara. But I want to look carefully at Rashi, at the end of Rashi in particular, as he quotes the Gemara, he quotes the Machloket between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yossi HaGlili. Rashi says the following. Rabbi Akiva Omer Kimashmo quotes the Gemara that says, Rabbi Akiva says, you have to read it as it sounds, Pashup Shat, simple meaning. How so? She'enu yochol lamod b'kishrei ha'milchamot lirot cherev shalufo. A person is simply scared beyond its wit's end to go to fight and have a sword drawn against him. He can't do it. He can't make it. But Rabbi Yossi HaGlili says something totally different. What does Rabbi Yossi HaGlili say? Hayare me'averot shibiyado. What is he afraid of? Not the battle, not the enemies, not the soldiers. He's haunted by his own sins. He's haunted by things he may have done wrong. And Rabbi Yossi HaGlili is saying that if an individual is haunted by those things that he might have done wrong throughout his life, we cannot allow that individual to fight in battle because his mind will be elsewhere. The same, of course, is true for a person who built a house or engaged to a woman or grew up a vineyard. But this one in particular, and in fact, if you look at the rest of the Rashi, Rashi goes further. Rashi says, "V'lakach talta lo Torah lachzor al bayit v'kerem v'isha." Rashi says, in fact, the Torah even gave us these other reasons of a house, a wife, and a vineyard. Why? To cover up those people who are returning because of the sins that they have. So the people will not see these people going back and say, they are Bali Aveira, these are people who have sinned. Because then they're going to say, no, they're going back. Why? Shema banabayis, o nota kerem, o eres isha. Meaning, in effect, that what they'll suggest is that the reason that these individuals are going back is not because of the fact that they sinned, they had these aveirot, but rather because of one of the other three reasons. Now, this is phenomenal and fascinating. And I'd like to give you a twist on something that I heard many years ago from Menachem Mendel Kotzk, the Kotzker Rebbe, 19th century Hasidic master, who asked the following question. He says, I don't understand. Based on this, I would say, level that the Torah gives, there won't be any army. Who would be an individual who doesn't have sins, who wouldn't be concerned with their sins. Could we find such a soldier who would go and fight and not have any concerns whatsoever in the context of what he did over the course of his life, over the course of even the last year? How could it be possible? So the Kotzker says the following. Look very closely at what Rabbi Yossi Aglili says, and he uses a very, very important word. He says that the person who's going to go back is not just the person who has sinned, but rather he is hayare me'averot shebiyado. He's the individual who's afraid of sins that are biyado, that are in his hand. Meaning, and I'm going to twist the Kotzker's words a little bit into my own interpretation, meaning he hasn't been able to let go of things that he did in the past. He hasn't been able to let go of sins, wrongdoings, decisions he made, mistakes he made. He's hung up on what happened in the past and he cannot move forward. He's created a form of paralysis for himself in which he regrets so much that he cannot move forward. His mental illness, his mental health is so shaken that he can't fight because he's going to be a liability to the older soldiers in his unit because he's not free of those concerns. And what the Kotzker is pointing out to us is that those people who fight, they have to be able to focus, obviously, as we understand, on the task at hand, at the battle at hand. But what he's pointing out is that this individual is not able to because of regret, because of feelings of remorse over what was. Now, the reason I think this is such an incredible message to think about right now is because we are beginning Rosh Chodesh Elul. Elul is an unbelievable opportunity that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us. We take it for granted that we have the opportunity each and every year to be forgiven for our averot. Yom Kippur, the Itzumo Shel Yom is Mechaper. The day itself for an individual who does tshuva brings us kapara and allows us to start new. The challenge sometimes is to accept that, to believe it, and to actually start from scratch. One could even suggest that the individual who holds on to his sins has a chisaron in his emunah and in his bitachon. This individual who's not able to move on, it's because of the fact that he doesn't believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us this amazing gift called tshuva, in which we can start again. There's nobody in the world who doesn't live with certain regrets. People think all the time, I should have done this, I should have done that. It could be in business. I should have bought that stock, or I should have made a real estate investment, or I should have switched jobs. It could be in the context of a personal life. It could be in terms of family. It could be arguments that a person had. It could be statements that a person made. There are all sorts of possibilities. But Rosh Chodesh Elul, the month of Elul, the season of the Yom Noraim, the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, they give us an opportunity not just to do tshuva, that we do year after year after year, but to truly try to move on and to truly try to ensure that it's not an Achilles heel that is bothering us, that these averot shebiyado that we, return to year after year after year, we can finally let go of them. And we can finally say, okay, thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for forgiving me. Now it's time for me to forgive myself. God has forgiven me. I've received tshuva. I've received, slicha, kapara, mechila, because of my tshuva. But now it's time for me to forgive myself and for me to allow myself to move on. And what a message that we have to, I think, consider and think about coming from this week's Parsha. A beautiful idea to think about as we enter the month of Elul. The Jewish people need lots of brachos. The Jewish people need a Yeshua. As we speak, the news on a constant basis is very alarming, and we have to hope and pray that Elul brings us real, true redemption, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps us and guides us, helps Medinat Yisrael, helps our chayalim, brings home our chatufim, and helps each of us and our families in every single way, and answers all of our tefillot. Thank you again for listening. Chodesh Tov and Shana Tova to all.